You smell that? Yeah, that's the smell of pig skin, fresh cut grass. Yes, we are back. We're less than a week away from the Titans playing an actual game that matters. So we're gonna break down the offense and the defense, but we're gonna start with this new look offense with our new QB at the helm. So let's dive in, after the intro. Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Bonafide, and this is Section 240, the channel all about the Tennessee Titans, but from a fan's perspective. Now, it's been a minute since we've done one of these, but hey, we're getting back into the groove. And it just might be me, but this has been one of the more exciting off seasons we've had in Nashville since Marcus Mariota was drafted number 2 overall back in 2014. So almost 10 plus years. Now, after that disaster that was last season, they made some big changes. It was almost like a repeat of the beginning of 2024. Rand is gone, Callie stayed, Chad took over, and he hired Mike Bergazzi. We ended up with the number 1 pick, and we got Cam Ward from Miami. Now, we're going to talk about him in a minute. Chad and Mike made it clear going into the draft that this was going to be a draft and develop team. And at the beginning, I didn't know what that really meant. That the goal is to draft good players and have them develop into good to great players. But after seeing this draft class, which we talked about in this video, been a minute, and the work they put in, as the old folks say, I'm picking up what they putting down. So let's dive into the offense as a whole and talk about how we're looking for this upcoming 2025 season. Now, we drafted Cam Ward, number 1 overall, and he is everything that we have been hoping for in a franchise QB. And that is kind of like an understatement. Cam immediately from day one has looked the part of the unquestioned leader of this offense and has been a vast difference from when Will Levis was QB1. Now, we've heard the multiple stories about how Cam is at the facility, usually at 5:30 in the morning, beating some of the coaches in the building, and basically having to be forcibly removed from the building. The man lives, breathes, and eats football. He said it on multiple occasions in podcasts and commercials that all he wants to be known as is a football player. Now, he's locked in. Now, and that even goes as far as taking tips from Jaden Daniels when it comes to VR reps. Music City Oliver got a good video. I'll post it up here. And this is an absolute fever dream to listen to. You hear your QB say all the right things and do all the right things. And what makes it that much better is that he backs it up on the field. Now, we saw what he did at Miami, and it looks like that's not going to be any different here in Nashville. In the limited time that we saw him play over the preseason, he looked every bit of the part of a franchise QB. Accurate throws, not making the same mistake twice, lightning quick release, good decision making. Now, I know it's the preseason, but it might be a good indicator of things to come. And if this offense is going to be better than what it was last year, and for Callie's employment's sake, they better be, it all starts with Cam Ward being the QB that we believe he can be. Now, we saw what was possible with a rookie QB and Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix and CJ Stroud the year before. But we need to understand, and I am part of that group, that he's a rookie. And no matter how poised he may be, we're going to expect some turbulence. But if he is what we think he can be, this offense is actually going to be fun to watch. And Cam calls himself a gunslinger, so I'm getting them Elway Favre vibes, even though there's been comps to Mahomes. So to say I'm excited would be a minuscule thing. So let me tell you one of the things that shocked me this offseason. And no, it wasn't Will Levis waiting until the day right before camp to go get surgery for an injury that happened, check your calendar, last year. Nah, it wasn't that. It was ESPN ranking the Titans' newly constructed offensive line number 5 overall, behind Philly, Denver, Chicago, and Minnesota, but ahead of teams like Baltimore, Buffalo, and KC. Now, come on, be serious. We're going to take these rankings with a grain of salt because, we had the worst offensive line in the NFL last year. Right tackle was a disaster, and it was just bad all around. Well, this offseason, Chad, Mike, and Callie made some changes, and the biggest one was they signed left tackle Dan Moore to a huge deal. And that caused a lot of concern because Dan Moore gave up a lot of sacks last year. Now, he did have to face Hendrickson and Garrett and that Baltimore defense like 6 times because of division, but they took a chance on him, you know. Now, the other move that they made on the line was taking J.C. Latham from left tackle and putting him back in his natural position of right tackle. Now, J.C. was putting in the work in the offseason too. He came down looking slim and trim, so, you know, whoop, and he still got that anchor. And they finished it off by bringing in veteran right guard Kevin Zeitler to shore up the line. Now, Cushenberry's back from the Achilles injury. He should be playing week 1. And Peter Skoronski is looking to make that leap to all pro. You know, he's there. Yeah, so a majority of this group that we saw playing the preseason, they seem to give Cam or whoever was back there enough time to kind of throw the ball. So now it remains to be seen whether or not this line is going to be vastly improved or not. So we have to remain, the jury's still out on that. So if you're liking what you see, you're liking the content, before we move to the next post, make sure you lock in with the channel. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, all right? You know, lock in with us. So we got a QB and the line is fixed. So who is Cam going to be throwing or handing the ball off to? And this, I feel, is where we run into a major concern for the offense, and that's our weapon. Now, on one hand, I'll tell you that Ridley and Pollard having a second season in this offense should be enough, especially given what they were working with last year and what they were basically able to get 1,000 yards apiece, either receiving and rushing. And we did bring in Tyler Lockett and Van Jefferson as those veteran pass catchers, but that leaves a lot to be desired, to be honest. But right now, we got a whole lot of youth on the offensive side of the ball. Elick Ayomaner and Chimere Dike are slotted to be in the rotation with Bryce Oliver, who is an exciting player, and he's the reason I think that they were comfortable letting NWI walk, but they're really raw. So we're putting a lot of trust and hope in this wide receiver core. Now, Elick could be a star, and DK could be that vertical threat that we're looking for. But again, the jury is still out on this. Now, we got Cheek at tight end 1, but for how long? Gunnar Helm was drafted, and he was consistently talked about all through camp. And that monster TD catch he had against the Falcons, we could see some shake up there. Now, we got Pollard in the backfield, and he's as solid they come. I got him on my sleeper fantasy team. But we were expecting Spears to be that complimentary back. Guess what? He's hurt. So we're going to see Chestnut and the rookie Khalil Mullins get reps. So we're definitely going to be leaning on Ridley. And Cam already said he was definitely going to make sure to Ridley get the rock. You know what I'm saying? He was his sidekick. So that's why Calvin Ridley's on my fantasy team too. So until these young guys can prove themselves to be reliable weapons, we're going to be cautiously optimistic. So as we wrap this up, a lot is riding on the offense and the defense, who we'll be reviewing later on this week. So be on the lookout for that. But a lot of this is riding on if Brian Callahan can put this all together and make this offense click. Like we know he can. Like last year, there was some spots where he showed an ability to call an explosive offense. And we saw a little bit of this preseason, but you can't put a lot of stock in that. But we do know this right now. The seat that Brian Callahan is sitting on is on one. And if Cam, even if Cam said publicly that he wants consistency, and he's leveraging that number 1 overall pick clout, if this offense doesn't lead to wins, Brian could be looking at the new Nissan Stadium from the outside. All right. So wrapping this preview up, and we're going to drop our 2025 defense preview later this week. So you make sure that you're locked in and you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything. We launched our podcast this offseason from the cheap seats. My homie Trey is my co-host, and we'll be recapping all the action from this season. So you definitely want to be sure you're locked in with that. Also, we're going to be live from the section the whole season. We warmed up this preseason, and now we are full go. So you got to join us every Sunday here on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, all the social media. We streaming there. Check out the website. Get your Section 240 merch by hitting up the shop. And make sure you locked in. You got to like, comment, share, and share this with your fellow Titans fan. Because remember, there's plenty of room in the section for us all. Tighten up.